question that any creator has to answer is, do I focus my attention on getting more and more followers and fans, or do I think about monetization? Over the last 2-3 years, all of us have become very comfortable enjoying experiences online. So Twitter is in the influence game, right? It's not in the reach game. The reach of Twitter is not just what's on Twitter. The reach of Twitter is what gets reported about Twitter everywhere else. You need to have multiple channels, and you need to be able to figure out what works for you across the channels so you can optimize what is right for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the KVKurious Podcast. Today we have Manish Maheshwari, who is currently the founder of Fanory. Previously, he was the founder of Invact Metaversity. Before that, Manish was the head of Twitter India, and previously he's been the CEO of Network 18 Digital. Manish has also spent many years working with companies like Intuit. In this conversation, we talk about creator economy, how do you monetize content, what is the future of content, monetization, advertising, democratizing reach, and much more. Hope you enjoy this conversation, particularly so if you're a creator or an aspiring creator, or even if you're not a creator, if you're a professional or a subject matter expert who is sort of looking to expand your reach in the online world. Content creation is possibly one of the avenues that you should look for, and this conversation might be extremely relevant to you. So listen to this conversation, Manish Curiously, with me on the KVKurious Podcast. Hi, Manish. Thanks a lot for being on my podcast. Excited to have this conversation with you around creator economy, content, and much more about your latest entrepreneurial journeys.
Thank you, Krishna. My pleasure to be on the show. And thank you for taking the time out to speak to me.
Sure. So what excites you about creator economy, Manish? Or what is creator economy in your perception?
Yeah, so what is happening is, as we have noticed, a lot of people are getting creative outlet through these social media platforms, right? So if you look at YouTube or if you look at Instagram, a lot of creators are out there putting their craft, and by craft, I mean not just their content, but also, it could be a song, it could be a piece of creative writing, it can be any kind of creative work, right? Now, historically, what used to happen was these creators either used to be on payroll of large corporations, and they used to earn a salary, and the corporations used to monetize it, or they used to have their own personal way of monetizing it, which was primarily offline, right? They would do their own shows, events, and they would have an agent who would do that. Now, these two trends are changing now. One is, it is far more empowering and it is far more satisfying for these creators to own their own destiny rather than being employed by large corporations, right? And they feel that they get much better creative satisfaction. Number two, everything is moving online, right? So all the things that they used to do offline through events and through their agents, now they have to do it online. Now, given these two trends, everyone is adjusting to this new phenomena, right? On the creator side, they are trying to figure out how to monetize, because all said and done, while they're getting a lot of followers on Instagram and YouTube, the monetization is still not fully solved for them. And I know that for a fact, because I've been in the industry, that except for the top 1 to 5% of the creators who get brand deals and endorsements, other creators are barely able to make their living. And if they live in a city like Mumbai, it's even difficult for them to just make enough to pay their rent. And that's one problem. The second problem is predictability of income. In a salaried job, you know that no matter how good or bad you do, you will still get a paycheck at the end of the month. And that would be enough to cover your fixed expenses like your home mortgage or rent or your car EMI, etc. But when you're an independent creator and you are on your own, not having predictable income can be really problematic, because it can lead to cash flow problem for you. You may not be able to pay your rent. You may not be able to pay for your necessities. So that remains an unsolved problem, and someone has to solve it. And that's where we came in with Fanory as a platform, where we provide creators a way to monetize their craft on their own in a way which is better than what they can do on social media platform, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So when I say quantitatively, for the same hours of effort put, we are able to give them more income than what they can do on social media platform. And I'll come to how we are able to do it. And second thing is, we also make the income thing predictable. So they know exactly how much they will make depending on how many hours they're willing to put in. So we do that formulation and we can show it to them saying, okay, if you put in these many number of hours, and these are the things, if you do, you will be able to make so much. So we are able to help them estimate their forecasted income, right, for the month. And that allows them to do their cash flow planning much better. So that's what we are coming to. Now, if I were to talk to you about the size of creator economy, it's huge, right? I mean, different numbers are being thrown. I think the number that is very convenient for me to remember is global creator economy is about $100 billion.
Well, not for
it's only growing, right? KVKR, the compounded annual growth rate is like more than more than about 20% per annum, right? So it's a large market. In the US, we have seen sites like Patreon be very successful. Teachable is there. Quite a few players are there. In rest of the world, I think different platforms are picking up, and I see a bright future because this is like turning creators into micro entrepreneurs and providing them the tools and techniques to write their own destiny and be their own employer, right? Versus depending on large corporations or just doing it for the sake of getting fans but not being able to make a living, which is both of them are both of them can be addressed. And that's what we are working on at Fanory.
Got it. So having spent close to a year in the space as well, I kind of agree with the primary thesis that you proposed, right? Where you say that there's a ton of creators that are not making enough money, but they're just in the race of getting a following, because only if they have a following do they have avenues in real life to monetize. And I think Kalari Capital and quite a few companies have come up with many reports telling there's roughly about 150,000 creators in India making more than 15,000 rupees a month, which is just enough to survive. And if you look at the thesis they come up with, it's the primary constraint that they've fixed to arrive at this number is the number of creators having more than 10,000 followers, because that's kind of considered the bare minimum for you to be able to monetize effectively. So when we speak of this monetization and when we tell that there are close to 80 million creators in India or 8 crore creators in India, but out of which only a small percent have more than 10,000 following, the primary constraint is not necessarily just about monetization, right? I think it starts a step earlier. The question is, how do you get many more people to cross the 10,000 mark, 10,000 follower mark, and only then can you give them more avenues? Or are you sort of telling that regardless of the number of followers, even if I have just 100 or 1,000 followers, I still have a certain opportunity?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, right? Like the key question that any creator has to answer is, do I focus my attention on getting more and more followers and fan, or do I think about monetization, right? Mm-hmm. As in any business or any trade, I think it is important to have some followers, but the question is, more followers doesn't mean more money for the creator, because we implicitly start assuming that, hey, if you have more followers, you will make more money. That is not the case, because only a fraction of your follower will be willing to pay you money. If you can focus just on that, you can actually make more money by focusing on that small fraction of people who are willing to pay you money, then doing sort of the spray bullet kind of approach, right? I mean, spray and pray, right? So my answer to that would be, depends on your objective, right? If you're in the fame game and you want to get followers and you want to be appealing to brands because you have huge number of reach, then getting more followers does make sense, because that improves your reach and then you can cut out brand deals at a later point. But I mean, it all depends on who are you trying to reach and how valuable those fans are and what is their purchasing power and sort of all those equations. But there's an alternate route as well, which is, don't go for millions of followers, just go for a few thousand or 100,000 super fans who really connect with you, who like you, and who value your unique craft and who are willing to pay you money directly for producing content or craft for them. So think about, like, if you're a musician and you are able to produce a piece of music that only 100,000 people like, but they are such an ardent fan that each of them is willing to pay you $10 a month. So 100,000 people giving you $10 a month, that's $1 million a month. That's more than enough for you, right? So it depends on your choices, right? So my view there is, everyone is in this followership game, and everyone's hoping that they'll get a brand deal at some point if they have millions of followers. But you don't have to follow the herd. You can figure out a direct monetization scheme or a program with your fans, because that is what is missing today, is direct monetization by charging your fans or by creating content or craft that your fans are willing to pay you for.
Got it. So while these numbers sound really fancy, right? $1 million a month, 100,000 followers and all of these, but I think the catch really lies in these numbers. So if I were to again bring back my original question, the point is basically that for someone who already has 10,000 plus followers, they have enough number of ways to make money today, and they are making fairly reasonably well than they ever would at a full-time job. But the concern is really with the remaining of the funnel, that remaining 79 point whatever million, that really does not even have a 10,000 follower mark. So when we speak of these folks with who can have 100,000 or 1 lakh super fans and them paying $10 a month, while those numbers seem fancy, but probably the target audience is not even that, right? I mean, we're not even talking about those creators, or are we?
Yeah, so creators come in all shape and form, right? You can have 1,000 followers who are willing to pay you even $10. That's even $10,000 a month, right? So the question here is, as a creator, what you need to do is you need to define what game are you at? Like, what's your craft and who is going to pay you for that craft, right? And how much are they willing to pay you? It's a very typical problem of any D2C brand, almost like as every creator is a D2C brand, right? You're direct to consumer brand. So the question here is, what is your offering, or what is the craft you are selling? Who is interested in that craft? How do you reach those people who are interested in your craft? How much are they willing to pay you for that? And how do you then monetize them, right? My suggestion there would be that the number of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 is all relative number, right? If you are a doctor or someone who is a nutritionist and can help you in weight loss, and even if you have only 1,000 followers who are willing to pay you, say, maybe 10,000 a month for a weight loss program, you can have a direct connect with those weight loss aspirants and make a very good living out of that.
True.
On the other hand, if you're a generic content producer, and even if you have 1 million fans who are consuming your content on Instagram, but when you charge them, they're not even willing to pay you 10 rupees for each piece of say picture, then all that 1 million followers is useless, right? I mean, it gives you a false sense of security that, hey, I have 1 million followers, but they are useless because they're not willing to pay you money, nor do they have purchasing power that brands will value. Then what's the point of having that many followers? So my answer to that question is, it depends. It depends on the creator, what craft they are in, who they are targeting, how much are they willing to pay, and those equations will then determine what is the right number of followership. And if you are low on followers or super fans, then what you should do is that identify your target audience and go after them, reach out to them, and give them a sample of what you can do for them, and ensure that there's a repeat usage. And that's how you grow your followership, right? I mean, you first figure out where are they hanging, and then reach out to them, let them sample what you're producing. And if they like it, they will come back to you. And then that's the point to think about. Then do a pricing test to figure out how much are they willing to pay for it, and then get into that whole business modeling around, okay, how much do I charge them? What do I produce for them? How often do I produce? And then the tools and techniques for doing that, which is where I think our platform Fanory comes in.
Got it. And since you mentioned, so much about propensity of the users, one common question that I really come across is, do Bharat users pay for specifically user-generated content? What do you think about that?
First of all, this is not user-generated content. These are expert-generated content, because a creator is by definition an expert in the craft they are a creator for, right?
Okay, so you are talking going back to the nutritionist
They are not
example.
users. Sorry?
So are you talking the case of like the nutritionist, for instance?
Yeah, nutritionist or like a personal finance advisor, or maybe a yoga instructor, or it could be like a teacher teaching maths, or it could be a musician, a piece of music, or it could be a TV artist doing a stage performance. Any of them creators. So they're not user generated content, number one. Number two, do Bharat users pay? Yes, they do. And they may not pay a lot of money, but for things that they like and they want to consume, they do pay. Subscription economy is booming in India, and all the payment friction has gone away. I mean, we have more choices to pay than any other country in the world. I mean, when I try to buy something, I have like so many choices, all the way from paying by my wallet to my UPI to credit card to my reward points. So payment as a process is very convenient in India. What is required is propensity to pay and ability to pay. Most Indian users do have ability to pay. They may not be paying in hundreds of dollars, but they certainly have an ability to pay in hundreds of rupees, right? So people do pay. And secondly, propensity to pay is there for something that they value. So Indian users are value users, right? So you have to give them something which is bespoke, exclusive. For example, if I want to interact and talk to my favorite movie artist, I'm willing to go on a video call with her or him, and I'm willing to pay a few thousand rupees for every hour of video. Like if I get to talk to my favorite movie star, I am willing to pay a few thousand rupees for that one-to-one video discussion. So if you have the right product, people will pay, and there is purpose to pay in India as well. I think people have a lot of surplus to pay for experiences. So you have to define and create experiences that is satisfying and gratifying to the users.
Got it. So have you also thought of maybe, have you spent more time thinking about how do you really bring experiences online? Because I read this recent tweet by Vaibhav at Better Capital, where he told that there's probably very little platforms in the country that sort of bring in social experiences online and target towards a specific niche, whatever that niche or the experience might be.
Yeah, so great question. I think over the last 2-3 years, all of us have become very comfortable enjoying experiences online, right? All the way from watching movies on OTT platform to events and concerts online to even your comedy, stand-up comedy and sort of music festivals online. And all of us do that for a variety of reasons. One is that it is far more convenient. It is as per my time and convenient and my location. So convenience is huge. Secondly, you have access to things that you cannot have access to physically. For example, if a concert is happening in Mumbai and I happen to be in Bangalore, I cannot just travel to Mumbai for that 1 hour concert, right? On the other hand, if I can consume that online, and if I have some way of interacting with that artist online, I would certainly pay for it, right? If my favorite artist is singing in Mumbai and I get to watch him live, and I also get to talk to him and I can get to be in the front row and interact with him. And those experiences can be created online. I mean, if you look at all the esports business and all the businesses which have come up, the technology is all there. You can create a virtual experience where you feel like you're in the stadium or in the music hall, and you can get all the things. In fact, you can have a much better view than what you can physically have, because when you go physically, you have all these random noise and all the disturbances, plus you don't always get the front row seat. So that's what it is, right? If I get to interact with my favorite cricketer during IPL virtually, I would love that experience as well. While the person when the match is going on, if I can get to interact with that, if I can talk to the commentator, like if I could talk to Harsha Bhogle and discuss about the ongoing IPL matches, all the experiences can be created virtually, and there could be a great business out of that. And that is what we enable, right? What we do is that at Fanory, we enable any creator to have their own personalized app to which they can invite their super fans and create premium, bespoke, and also exclusive experiences for them. For example, think about it this way, right? You want to talk to your, say, a TV artist and understand a few things about the nuances of her acting, and you really are into that line of sort of I would say creative arts. You would want to be able to have that one-on-one interaction, and that is possible. I also gave you example of, say, this nutritionist. Similarly, think about astrologer, right? I mean, there in India, there's astrology is huge, personal finance is huge. If you can talk to a personal finance expert, if you are a parent and you want to talk to a parenting expert, if you are a mother of a, say, a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, and you want to discuss about how to be a good parent and what are the things to keep in mind as your child is growing up. And if there is a well-known Indian or global parenting expert, you would certainly pay for an exclusive interaction with that person. Or even if it's not exclusive, if there is a live interaction and you could ask questions, those things are highly valuable, and we do pay for it. For example, we do pay for a live interaction with a doctor. We do pay for a live interaction with an advisor. So there are so many experiences for which we anyway pay in a physical setting.
Mm-hmm.
And why can't those creators and their craft can be brought online in a personalized app format? And why can't then they connect with their, I would say, followers or super fans and charge them? And as long as everything is taken care of by the system or the platform, which is our platform, which is Fanory, it can be very seamless for them, including payment collection, deciding what to offer. It can be exclusive videos, it can be exclusive photos, it can be live interactions, live chat. It can also be, if you're talking to a personal finance expert, it can also be stock tip and advice. It can also be a company analysis and sort of review. You can talk to a personal wealth advisor. I mean, I can think about like at least 10 use cases where people would be willing to pay. And if you take the whole hassle out of this and make it very seamless, click, 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 and everything happens, the convenience is going to be huge. And I think that is what we are focused on, making it convenient so that every creator can focus on what they do best, which is to create, right? And leave the rest to us.
Got it. But just a counter question here. When you're speaking of, let's say, nutritionists or experts in general, and of course, the propensity of people to pay, would you really call it an experience, or is it more of consulting? That's point number one. But more importantly, when we speak of, let's say, a doctor, a nutritionist, a parenting expert, or a finance expert, or any of these, typically, most of these people get their customers through word of mouth. So how exactly does content play a role for them to sort of navigate around this platform, or how are they supposed to identify their followers? Or is it sort of, are you talking about their regular customers who typically travel 25-30 kilometers, or regular patients who travel 25-30 kilometers can now happen online?
Yeah, so first of all, let's come to the question of how do they get their people to come and use their services, right? So today, what they do, right? I mean, they have customers in a physical setting. So then they can tell them that, hey, I have my own personalized app on Fanory. You can download my app and start interacting with me. Either that is one way. Second is they have social media following, because if they are well known, they would probably have a Facebook page, they would have an Instagram presence, they would be tweeting or something, or their agency would be tweeting, or their company would be tweeting. So on that platform, they can say that, hey, I have my own presence on Fanory, and you can sort of interact with me there in a more customized and exclusive way. Because when you do interaction on social media, it is for public. So you can only do lowest common denominator kind of interaction. You can't become very personal. You can't do exclusive for sure, because everything is public. So that's another way. So those are the two ways, right? Either they can spread the word online and get people to interact with them on their own personal platform, or they can tell their existing customers and the word gets out through word of mouth. So anyone who is using their services comes online and start interacting with them, and sort of through that, the word of mouth spreads. So that's the way. Now, to your question about consultant versus others. So yes, many of them are consultant because they are sharing their craft through a consultancy or advisory mode. Now, that is one set of experience, which is like, oh, I am getting the benefit by talking to you. The other set of experience could be like entertainment. Entertainment industry is full of experience, right? It can be listening to something. It could be listening to a performance. So all the visual artists and all the entertainment industry. So there is a huge component of visualization, right? And through the online platform, you can create amazing visuals, and you can interact with them in a video format as well. So you can replicate that physical phenomena online. The third set of experiences involves around multi-party experience. For example, not only you are watching them along with your friends and other fans. And then the interaction between them also creates a unique experience, like watching an esport. right? So even that is technologically possible, that one person from Bangalore logs in, one person from Boston logs in, and one person from Brisbane logs in, and they listen or watch an artist perform. And while the performance is going on, they interact with the artist. They come online. They come online with the artist, and every other fan watches it, or the fans also interact with each other, and that also can be showcased. So all those formats are possible: one-to-one format, one creator to many fans format, a fan and creator interacting, and all the other fans watching it. That is also possible. A creator and multiple fans interacting, and that being live telecasted or live broadcasted or live shown to other fans, like what happens with Twitch. So technologically, all those formats are possible, and each of them is a unique experience, right? I mean, you might be the shy kind. You don't want to talk to your favorite, favorite cinema star, but you enjoy other fans like you talking to that person on stage, and then you viscerally or vicariously feeling that, hey, you are talking, right? Or you can be very vocal and you want to be the one, so you can raise your hand, pay some extra money, and be on the stage with your star and talk to them, right? So those experiences can also be created, right? So you can imagine whatever you want to do. Sky is the limit in terms of imagination, and I think technologically all these things are possible. What remains to be seen is that as we do this, which format becomes the optimum format, both from the point of view of efficiency and also from the point of view of monetization, because many of them are very heavy formats, and I think all of them may not work all the time and may not be monetizable, right? So I think over the period of time, we'll figure out which one works better than the other. For example, when I used to be at Twitter earlier, we tried 2 experiments in India. One was called Tip Jar, where we enabled artists and content creators to charge money or for their content created on Twitter. And so any fan could say, pay $1, $2 like a tip. And that's what's called a tip jar. So you want to promote an artist. It's like when you walk on the street of New York, you'll see a lot of street performers. And if you like some performance, you pay $1 as a source of encouragement, like a tip, right? So we enabled that functionality online. The second thing we enabled on Twitter was something called ticketed spaces. So if you're an artist or a performer, you can have your own space and you can start performing, and you can put a ticket entry kind of gate ticket. So if you want to join my concert or you want to listen to me, you have to pay $10 to be part of my concert. So we can also put a entry point kind of model.
You can put a paywall to join.
Yeah, so you buy my ticket and join. Like, it's almost like in a physical world. If a concert is going on, you have to pay a price to get the entry to a concert. That's a ticket you have to buy, right? So that's something similar you can do online as well. So those 2 formats we tried. Ticketed spaces is very, very useful when an artist is famous, has a huge fan following, and wants to limit the number of people who he wants to interact with or she wants to interact with. So they can say that, okay, I will sell only 1,000 tickets. And you can either have a fixed price ticket, or you can have a bidding process saying, hey, all of you can start bidding. The top 1,000 people who have the highest bid will get an entry. So by doing that, you are actually getting the best price possible for your performance, right? Which is not possible in the physical world, but in the online world, you can have a bidding process, right? So there are multiple, I would say, things possible. I mean, you just have to expand your imagination and think, okay, who would derive value where, and how do we then replicate that online, and how do we then implement that technologically?
Got it. But you mentioned about the tip jar and the ticketed spaces. Why are they not so prevalent today, on Twitter at least?
Yeah, so in India, like I'll tell you, the spaces has been popular.
Spaces, yeah, but they're mostly free.
Yeah, mostly free because, see, again, in the social media format, right, there are 2 levels of cuts that happen. One is the App Store cut. App Store takes the 30%. And then the platform cut happens. There's another 30 to 70%. Like if you look at YouTube, they take all the 67%, right? So what you get as an artist is actually a very small amount. And that is what we are trying to disrupt, right? If you come via the Fanory platform and you create your own personal app or your personal space on Fanory, and you start using that, We are behind the scene. We are the enablers, right? So we are basically a technology enabler for you. So you own your space, you run your concert. We take care of all the payment collection, everything. And we take a very small portion of what you make. So it's your app, it's your fans. You decide how much you want to charge. You decide how often you want to charge. And whatever is collected, it goes to you and we take a very small portion. So monetizability and what you actually get ultimately is very high for the creator in our platform. And that is what we're trying to disrupt, because we know that social media platforms are not made for creator monetization. They are made for user growth and engagement, which is monetized via advertisements, right? So there is no direct monetization channel, or at least even if they have, it is an afterthought. It came much later. What came first is engagement and advertisements. And when you are advertising, all the money goes to the platform. And I think the platform may choose to give or not give anything to the creator. Right? Advertising is paid based on user engagement. It is not paid based on the creator and their craft. That's a disconnect that we have today in the social media world. And that is what we are trying to correct with Fanory.
Got it. But more specifically in the context of Fanory, are you specifically talking about monetizing through different experiences or exclusive fan interactions? Or are you also talking in terms of the content itself? And the reason I ask this is because if you're telling that, here's an alternative way where you can directly monetize with your content itself, one of the arguments that a creator is going to say is come up with is to say, you know what, I'm making money through ad revenues, let's say on YouTube. And although it's less, at least I have a potential for growing my audience base there and eventually make more money through brand deals. Versus if I just, limit my content and put a paywall on it, how much conversion am I going to get at all?
So it's not either or, it's and.
It's and, right? Okay.
So we are not saying that don't do what makes money for you on social media, right? If social media works for you, go ahead and make money on social media. But I know for sure, because I used to run Twitter for India, that bearing the top 1% creators, most of the creators don't make a lot of money on social media.
Yeah.
1% top 1% creators, yes. I mean, if you talk about Amitabh Bachchan and Shahrukh Khans of the world, I'm sure they get huge number of brand deals and they don't need to worry about direct monetization. But most of the other creators are struggling, right? So if something works for you on social media, do it. But if it is not working, it is important for them to also figure out alternate ways of making money for their own livelihood and also for the fact that they don't want to be shortchanged by any large company, right? It's like selling on Amazon versus having your own storefront on Shopify. If Amazon works for you, yes, go and sell your product on Amazon. But we also know that if you are a seller number 99 on Amazon, how likely is a user to find you, and how much can you really charge the user in terms of premium pricing?
Yeah,
because if you're a seller number 99 on Amazon, very few users will actually find you. And even if those who find you, you can't charge any premium price to them. You have to give them a rock bottom price, right? So then what is the alternative? If you're not able to sell on Amazon, if you're a seller, then you create your own storefront using Shopify. And you invite your own local audience and your own diehard fans and your super fans to say, you know what, I have my own online store and you can buy directly from me. And here is my catalog and here is my price list. That's exactly what we are doing for our creators, saying, hey, if you are popular on Instagram and YouTube and you make millions of dollars, all power to you. You don't need our help. But if you are a creator number 99 and you are struggling to make your ends meet,
right,
it might make sense for you to also consider Shopify for your craft, which is what Fanory is.
Yeah, that's a wonderful analogy.
Yeah,
I think that explains
Amazon and Flipkart works for the top sellers. It doesn't work for seller number 99.
So are you also saying
sellers in this world, right?
True. So are you also saying that how there's ONDC coming up for tackling Amazon and Flipkart and let's say just about monopoly in the world of e-commerce? Do you also think there's room for, let's say, an open network for digital content and not just commerce?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, because who wants to be held ransom by large platforms like Google, Facebook, etc., right? I mean, no one likes to be told and governed by someone as large as these companies, right? I mean, each of these creators are very creative and independent people. They want to take things in their own hand, right? So my view would be, yes, today we are not there. And the reality of the situation is that you have to depend on these large platforms just to get discovered and start building fan base. But these platforms will work for their own self-interest. They are not there to help creator earn a living all the time. They probably are loyal to the big creators who drive fan following and engagement for the platform. But the small creators who don't drive fan followers and engagement, these platforms don't want to do anything for them because it's not in their self-interest to do that. It's like a time and money wasted for nothing in return. And these are listed capitalistic companies, right? So they will do what is right for their business. They are not there to do public service or philanthropy.
No.
And that's the business model, right? I mean, I can't blame them for that because they are listed on the stock market and they have to produce returns for their shareholders. So they will do what will give them business outcome. And frankly, as a result, the middle and the long tail of creators are not getting attended to. They are not being attended to. Right? So that's the reality. I mean...
But drawing back on your experience from, let's say, your time at Network 18, you've spent quite some time with professionally generated content as well. So, and since we spoke enough about how, let's say, platforms for user or even expert generated content is centralized to a great extent, and that is part of the reason for most of these monetization problems, do you also think there are challenges with centralization in the professionally generated content space today, in the OTT space or in terms of media labels or production houses? And if you think there is, a future that is going to be different with respect to how it deals with these organizations?
So I didn't follow your question fully, but let me tell you about my view on content, right? So the one word that is coming to my mind in terms of content is that there is a democratization of content happening, right? There is a place for every kind of content and there's a place for every kind of creator today. It is not just about the best professionally created content done by the top tier star, right? So the stardom and the professional content, there is a place for them as well. I'm not saying they will be irrelevant. Like Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan still have a place, and professionally done content on, say, BBC or like CNN from a news perspective, or say, if you look at Star Plus and all from entertainment perspective, there is still a place. But what is also happening is that technology makes it possible for anyone to create any content anytime. And it also enables anyone to consume any content anytime of any variety, right? So there is a multi-point matching happening, right? If I am a small creator in a small town in, say, Coimbatore, producing I'm a flute, like I play flute.
Artist, yeah.
And there are only like 1,000 people in my neighboring area who listen to my flute performance and they love me because I do a particular kind of flute performance. There is a place for that content as well today, right? I mean, that 1,000 people living in that locality and that flute player, they can have a connection and a bond, and that can be done, right? The other thing also happening is that the younger generation of millennials, they are much more into, I would say, unpackaged content, because packaged content lacks authenticity. It seems like it has been,
it's gone through some processing. Yeah,
it has gone through some processing. It has been doctored, right? So maybe the younger generation believes in authenticity and relatability. So the more the content is raw, unfiltered, real time, and looks like you, it's relatable to you, the more they connected to it, it seems more authentic to them, right? So there is a place for that content as well. And I think the newer generation actually enjoys not just the movie, but the behind the scenes as well. Like, how did the movie get?
Yeah.
And the unedited version of all the shots and what challenges came in, right? So there is a place for that as well. So you can't say one is right versus wrong. It's a question about technology enables people to exercise their choice in terms of what they want to consume, and also enables people to get connected to the source of that, to the source of what they like. So they can also source it better, and they can produce it better, and they can connect better, right? And I think that's where I think the game is completely changing now, compared to, say, in the olden times, a large media house, solid packaged content done by a professional creator, sold at a high price. That market is also there, but there's a new market that has emerged, which was never there in the past.
Got it. maybe digressing a bit here, but since you mentioned, that millennials, Gen Z love unfiltered content, and I agree with you because I belong to, I'm a Gen Z myself, or at least born in '98, let's say. But interestingly enough, it's also the same species of people that use Snapchat filters, use filters on Instagram. Every time they post, let's say anything on social media, everything is completely filtered. But at the same time, they're also appreciative of the other end of the spectrum, which is complete authenticity. So how do you really, label this or label their consumption pattern? Or do you think it comes from a specific bias towards a certain experience at a certain time?
Yeah, I think there is a bit of a contrast and also a bit of a, I would say, bizarre behavior, right? I mean, you do want to see unfiltered content because you want to develop your own opinion, you want to have a point of view. So that is in terms of consumption, right? As a consumer, you don't want people to tell you what is what. You want to make your own opinion, and therefore you want the raw footage as a consumer. But as a producer, and particularly you talked about Snapchat filters. So as a young person, a millennial or Gen Z, I also have a lot of self-awareness and consciousness about how I am seen in public. Like, I really worry about my public image today because more than ever, and particularly people who are in their teenage, they are very, very conscious about their sort of the way they are seen in the public. And that is where you see the behavior where they want to put their best foot forward. And they know more than anyone else that whatever they do online is going to stay online and can come back and bite them. And that is where you see that their knowledge and awareness is causing them to behave in a certain way online, but that pertains to a personal projection. But when it comes to a content they are consuming in general about news, events, happening, entertainment, they prefer unfiltered content. They prefer something which is raw and genuine because they don't want to be fed. They want to figure out on their own. And that's how I would explain the two behavior that seem very contrasting, but actually there is a logic to it.
Got it. And one more thing that just went through my mind when you were telling this is maybe Gen Z and millennials understand that, or in general, they are appreciative just of authenticity, but they also understand why people tend to, put themselves behind a screen and put a certain mask when they are putting themselves out there in the public. So maybe it's the relatability factor that makes them more accepting of, let's say, filtered content. But at the same time, maybe it's the fact that when someone is posting unfiltered content, they just start respecting them all the more because they were able to break through these insecurities.
Exactly. So if you look at it, even that in that behavior, right?
Yeah.
If someone is only posting their best pictures, their engagement with their fan would be superficial.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if they also post things like, hey, I ran into this problem. Hey, I also made this mistake. And when you admit your mistakes and your problem, you come across as more human and you come across as more relatable. So the kind of fan engagement they get is much better because even fans like to follow people who are like them, right? So if you're always perfect and you say just the right words all the time, you would get one set of followers. Right. But if you also show your vulnerabilities, you will get a much larger audience and also much more connected audience, someone who believes in you much more. And that is what you see that stars today, they have become more authentic and they have started to expose their vulnerabilities as well online. And that is what makes them more human.
True, but where exactly do you draw the line for this vulnerability? Like how vulnerable is just okay and how much is overdoing
That requires a bit of a practice because no one knows who's being written. And I think you have to try different things and figure out that, okay, what is the right level? Like how much privacy is right, how much vulnerability is right. I mean, it's a matter of degree, right? And it works differently for different people, right? So some people, they are able to showcase all the problems and yet people love them and like them. But in some cases, if you show too many of your problems, then you lose your sort of the starhood as well, right? So there is some level of authenticity, but do you have to be 100% transparent and share everything in your life? Maybe not.
Okay. Maybe we're switching spaces here, but of late, I've been reading a lot about how Coup is picking up as a platform, the competitor to Twitter. And one more interesting statistic that I've noticed with regard to Twitter is how it has the least number of users or users in India when it comes to social media. We have hundreds of millions of users using, let's say, YouTube or Instagram or even WhatsApp for that matter. And of course, much of these short video platforms like Chingari, Moj, Takatak, and all of these. But despite Twitter, spanning across 18 plus different languages and being much more short and concise forms of content, which is much easier to consume, and despite it coming with, the enough amount of, the lack of a better word, masala and controversy that really gets people incited and excited. But why do you think the user base of Twitter has been much lower than the other content platforms in the country?
Yeah, so you have to understand the positioning of Twitter. So I'm saying this from my past experience. Of course, I have not been with Twitter for the last 1 year, so more than a year now. So I don't know what's the latest there. And of course, a lot of action is happening with Elon Musk there. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is based on experience last year. So Twitter is in the influence game, right? It's not in the reach game. And that is why what happens on Twitter or what trends on Twitter becomes the headline in the country. What happens on YouTube or Facebook doesn't become the headline. So the game is very different, number one. Number two is that it's a opinion sharing platform. It's a platform where you express your opinion mostly in the form of text. And therefore, by definition, it is for people who are very comfortable writing and who are witty about what they write and who are able to connect the dots. So it is not for everyone. And that is why, if you notice, the reach is not huge for Twitter as compared to, say, WhatsApp or YouTube or even Facebook or Instagram. But when it comes to influence, it is the platform that determines the headline of the country. Whatever becomes the headline next day is what is trending today on Twitter. So that's a difference.
But how do you think it propagates down the line from there? Once it trends on Twitter, how do you think it propagates further?
Propagates where? I think it gets picked up by mainstream media. So then it becomes known to everyone, right? So the reach, even if you talk about the reach game, the reach of Twitter is not just what's on Twitter. The reach of Twitter is what gets reported about Twitter everywhere else. Like if you look at the newspaper, every quote that you see from a politician or a film star or a cricketer is actually his or her tweet.
Yeah.
So the reach of Twitter is not only on the platform, it's on every newspaper, it's on every TV. If you open the TV and any kind of live broadcast or primetime news, whatever quote you see there is actually their tweet, because these days, people don't go to the press and say, here is my press release. They just tweet it out. And everyone picks it up from there.
Right.
So what happens on Twitter does not stay on Twitter. It gets picked up by mainstream, and everyone reads about it. Even people who do not have internet connection and people who are in the interiors of the country get to know about what's happening on Twitter without actually logging into Twitter. So the actual reach of Twitter in that sense is way more, because every news actually has an origin in a tweet.
Interesting. And it's also true, not just about Twitter, right? I until recently, I was thinking about how exactly does something get viral. For instance, something happens in the parliament. By the end of the day, the topic is already the discussion on the dinner table. But there's so much more happening, let's say, in other parts of the world, or let's say so much more new content coming. Unless it's picked up by mainstream media and press, it never sort of hits the dinner table conversations. So despite having phenomenal reach on, let's say, other social media platforms, somehow they just end up being viral, but not necessarily becoming news and topics of discussion. And do you think that significantly affects how relevant or the duration of relevance for creators that are on these remaining social media platforms?
You have to separate the two things, right? So the relevance of creator is a function of two things. One is, of course, the reach and the depth or influence. Like, for example, if you get hit by a lot of content, but you are not engaging with it, or it's not relevant, it's not influential to you, then it doesn't make sense, right? So essentially, the question here would be that if you have millions of reach, but no influence or no relevance to me, it's useless. On the other hand, if you have a lot of influential stuff and a lot of reach, a lot of, I would say, depth in what you say, but you're not able to reach anyone, then that also is useless, right? So you have to hit the right proportion. Now, for cerebral creators, platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn does make sense because it gives you the right level of influence plus some reach. On the other hand, if you are the creative or the visual one, then platforms like Instagram and YouTube are better because it gives you a chance to perform and show your creative art in a visual format. And it appeals to people of those kinds because those people are hanging out there. So it depends on, what trade are you in, right? I mean, different platforms cater to different trade. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but it's about like you have different tools available. Pick the tool that is right for your trade. That's how I will put it.
So in a way, what you're telling is reach might not be as important as, let's say, influence over your reach.
It depends on situation, right? Reach without influence, like your currency is a function of both. Like it's a multiplication of both, right? So zero reach, no matter what influence you have, is useless. And zero influence with whatever reach you have is also useless, right? So you have to have the right proportion. Now that proportion changes. For example, for a cerebral, like most of the people who are sort of focusing on, say, intellectual content, for example, a personal finance expert or sort of VC, or someone who is talking about, say, how to get fit, right? Where there's a lot of textual content, right? It's about talking and sharing knowledge in a textual format, which requires long form reading or short form reading, but something very witty and short, or maybe long form but deep analysis, critical thinking. Platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn are much better. On the other hand, something that requires gratification by experiencing, something which is more visually appealing, something that requires movements and all. It doesn't require your brain to process words, but it requires your brain to understand the creative side of it and your eyes to sort of savor it. Then visual expression mediums like YouTube and Instagram are much better for those sort of people. So depends on your craft, right? Because when it comes to visual artists, the influence is not in a traditional way. The influence is more in terms of, hey, was I able to satisfy you and give you a sense of, say, entertainment, right? You are not trying to influence the brain there. You're trying to give a sense of enjoyment, right? So the influence is in the form of enjoyment and engagement, right? So then influence turns into engagement on those platforms. While on Twitter and LinkedIn, influence is where I think I'm changing your mindset. I'm changing your thinking. I'm changing how you approach a situation. But in the creative art form, you're not talking about, hey, by listening to my song, I'm going to change you how you think about songs. I'm playing a song for you so that you can experience it and feel good about it. It's a form of engagement and enjoyment, right? So it's very subtle, but I think the way the mechanism works are quite different here.
Got it. But one thing that stands true across this is the onus is on the creator to sort of optimize for whether they want reach or influence or both, or how much of each that they want. And
in fact, creator has to optimize across multiple dimensions. One is reach, like how many followers they want and how many people they want to be seen by. Second is influence, which is how much they want to connect with them, either as an engagement or as a way to change their mindset. The third is monetization, how much they want to monetize, right? Do they want to give it free, not free? And the fourth is about content format, right? I mean, sort of which one to do. Fifth is around frequency. So I think as a creator, it's like you're running a D2C brand, right? So you have to decide like, okay, what part of my product I'll give free, what part of product I want, because like I want to have maximum reach. So I'm willing to give my stuff for free for some period. And then at some point I'll monetize later. Then I also have to decide who do I reach out to, how often do I reach out to, at what price point I reach out to. So all the typical levers that you have as a D2C brand, as a creator, you have all the same levers. And sort of each of these social media platforms are basically your distribution channels. So in the retail trade, you have to decide, like, do I sell by Amazon? Do I sell by my own website? Do I sell by modern trade? Do I sell by retail stores? Or do I put up my own offline store? So you optimize across these channels to figure out the right revenue and sort of the customer satisfaction metric. So that's how I think even as a creator, you have to look at all those aspects.
Got it. But when we say that, although they might have 5 different factors to optimize for, if you give the creator the responsibility for, let's say, building their reach as well as how well they can engage or influence their audience, platforms like Fanory that you're building, or platforms like what I'm building, are able to sort of at least make it much easier for creators to monetize, for them to
we focus only one thing. So we are not competing with any of the social media platforms because we don't we are not promising them reach or distribution. We are just simply saying that if you already have reach, distribution, or content, or some craft, we will help you monetize.
Monetize it.
The way we will help you monetize is that we will help you understand your super fans. We will help you understand what experience to give them, and we will help you charge money in a coin-based way, right? I mean, in a frictionless way where where the fans would purchase coins, and then they can go through multiple experiences. Like you go to a gaming parlor and you have a top-up card, you fill the top-up card and you can play multiple games without the friction of showing a credit card every time you play a game, right? Every time your balance runs out, you top it up. So there's a coin-based wallet system. So we make it easy for them to monetize, and that's the only one thing we focus on, which is monetization. We don't do anything else for them.
For sure, but all I'm saying is that monetization is something we can make easier for creators, and depending on the monetization, if there are more avenues for monetization, we can of course make the frequency much easier for on the creators. So what the creator is eventually left with is, let's say, reach and influence that they are responsible for. Now, influence is something which largely depends on the kind of content and how well the content itself, resonates with the audience. So the one variable that really stands out to me is reach. And the reason I ask you this particularly is, do you think there's a way to democratize reach?
Yeah, so good question, right? How do you democratize reach? The way it would happen is, you need to have multiple channels, and you need to be able to figure out what works for you across the channel so you can optimize what is right for you. Now, by definition, large platforms like Instagram or YouTube have huge reach. So you as a creator will have to be on these platforms. You don't have a choice because you want to be available when people want it. Having said that, you can build your personal platforms as well on the side. For example, if you are, say, Amitabh Bachchan, you will be on Instagram, but you can also have a direct connect with your audience on something that you directly control. Because the problem is that if you depend only on these social media platforms, you have platform risk. These platforms can suspend your account anytime. They can change their policies. They can delete your post. They can change your post. They can reduce or increase their follower count. They have the power to do anything they want, right? So you want to be on this platform as long as it works for you, but you also want to reduce platform risk by having your followers engage with you on a separate, another way, on a separate app or a separate, I would say, platform. And that's where I think Fanory helps, because we enable them to create their own personalized app and engage with their existing fans. We don't help them get new fans, but whatever fans you have on Instagram or YouTube or Twitter, you can transport them to your personal app so that even if the platform changes their policies, you don't lose your fans. You can still engage with them on your personal space.
Got it.
We allow that porting.
Yeah, sure. You were saying something. Now that
we allow that porting, or we allow them to move their followers so that they can engage with them in two different ways, right? When they're engaging with the same fan on Instagram, you are giving them generic content that is for everyone. But when you're engaging with the same audience on their personal app, you give them more exclusive and bespoke experience. It's almost like its example would be like, if I'm a stand-up comedian and I'm putting my video on YouTube, it's a generic performance for the whole world. But if you come to my show at 7 p.m. in Mumbai, which is only for 20 people, you get a very different one-on-one experience where I can talk to you, I can engage with you, I can call you on stage, I can ask you, what would you like to listen to today? What would you like to see? So that's what it is. Like, the audience is the same audience is Instagram, and the same audience comes to watch your live show at a place in, say, Mumbai, in a theater in Mumbai. The way you engage with them is different. Yeah, in the latter case, it's a much more premium experience.
True, and it's much more involved. It's participatory on both ends.
And you can extend that logic to say, I can also provide them one-on-one experience. I can just perform at their birthday party. And that would be one-on-one experience that only you get to see my stand-up comedy. No one else get to see. And I will customize my stand-up comedy to fit into the theme of your birthday party. And I will charge more for it, but I will do that just for you, right? So you can think about different experiences in different ways, because the audience can be the same, but the platform and where you engage with them will determine the quality of experience and also propensity to pay. Because for a generic performance on YouTube, no one will give you money. But if you come to my birthday party and perform just for me, for my special guest, I will pay you tens of thousands of rupees to come to my performance.
True.
Right? But the audience is the same. But think about it this way, right?
Yeah. For experiences, the propensity varies.
The propensity varies. For the same artist and the same audience, the context matters and the platform matters.
Very true. Very true. But maybe when we speak of democratizing reach, I think it goes a layer deeper. What do I necessarily mean here is, for sure, let's say if I've already built a certain audience on any platform, whatever that is, I'm able to monetize or interact or engage a subset of this audience much more effectively in different contexts, and could also mean much different ticket sizes. But when we speak of democratizing reach, one other possibility that I'm sort of just hypothesizing here is much of the deal today on, let's say, any social media is about what following do you actually have. When we at least talk of brand deals, or when we talk of how well a creator is able to sort of flourish on a certain platform, right? And in order to, let's say, build their audience base, today it's sort of boiled down to almost following a certain set of good practices on a specific platform, be it the format in which you create, or be it the frequency with which you create. So is another way of looking at democratizing reach almost like, guaranteeing a certain distribution, guaranteeing a certain follower base, or just making sure that you've put something here and it's going to hit whoever your right target audience is. Or if I were to simplify this much more, it's almost like telling, can you make performance marketing free for creators? Do you think that's sort of another option? Performance marketing of their own content.
I lost that. I didn't follow the question. So
right.
If you can summarize and make it crisp, like in one line.
Yeah.
So your question.
So the question is almost like, if I have to advertise a certain product today, or if I have to get reach for a certain product today, my first choice is going to be performance marketing, or boosting my post on, let's say, Facebook ads or Instagram ads, or even YouTube, right? And this typically comes with a capital injection. So I'm asking, when we're speaking of democratizing reach, is it sort of virtually possible to make this entire process free? That is, you sort of guarantee this without people having to pay for it.
I still didn't follow. So make it free for whom?
For the creators.
So today it's not free. Like, so if you are creating content, like you have to pay for it.
So no. Let's say if someone is posting today on Instagram, they're going to get a certain finite reach, and to make it reach more feeds, they have to typically pay an amount to boost their post, sponsored post, so boost that particular post, and it's going to show up as promoted, as sponsored. It's available even on Twitter, right? So I'm asking, this entire process is about giving you reach, but giving you reach after you paid me for it. And democratizing reach would probably mean giving you that reach just because you deserve it, because your content deserves it, not because you paid it for me. Not because
today also, if your content is very good, it becomes viral and gets shared and it is free. Only when your content is not good, that is when you have to pay to reach, right? Because if your content is great, then it will get shared and people will watch it and you don't have to pay anything. So today, anyway, for quality creators, reach is free. For people who don't have quality content, that's when you have to pay. Isn't that true? Because
no, I would disagree.
When you're paying, you are saying that I want to be seen by people who will organically not see me, right? And people will organically see you if you have the right content. And because the algorithms works in a certain way where they feel like, okay, if the audience wants to see this content and will engage with it, they will want to show that content, because that is how they will grow engagement, right? So algorithms try to give you free reach proportionate to the quality and the relevance of your content. If you want to get reach beyond the proportionate amount, that's when you have to pay.
Got it. But I would sort of disagree and add a point there, right? If let's take a live concert, for instance. How do standing ovations work? The entire auditorium doesn't give a standing ovation at once, right? It's not that everyone found it worthy of standing ovation at once. It's basically some people stood up and started that, and then it propagated like a Mexican wave. So similarly, at least from what I have spoken to a lot of marketing experts and branding experts, one thing that really stands true about virality is basically it all boils down to who are the first few people watching your content, right? So as of today, it's very possible that, let's say, I put out a certain piece of content and it's shown to, let's say, 20, 25 or 100 people. It's possible that these 100 people do not like it or engage extremely well with my content. And naturally, it died out, in the hierarchy, and it never went further. But it's also one of the other possibilities remains that these 100 people were the wrong set of 100 people to see my content. Maybe there is another set of 100 people who were the right initial audience. And if my content reached them before, the same piece of content would have hit a virality loop. So from that perspective, do you think somewhere we're messing up when it comes to recommendation algorithms today, or is there a way to organically democratize reach?
Yeah,
or democratize organic reach?
Yeah, so see, I mean, nothing is perfect at any point in time, right? It is always moving towards perfection. So clearly, when you say a first 100 people who should have seen should have been the ideal 100 people in the world, finding that ideal 100 people in the world that should see your content first is the challenge, the holy grail, right? I mean, like if you produce a piece of content, figuring out who is the best 100 people to see that content first is a very, very, I would say, very rewarding intellectual exercise for me also to figure out. And I think everyone is trying to move towards that and trying to figure out. And the way the things work is that you will have an estimate or some kind of a guesswork based on your historical, like you would have a profile of the audience and you have a profile of the creator and you try to match them. And if you see that they're engaging, then you will show them more of that content. They're not engaging, you will show them different. So everyone is trying to move towards that. And I think as things become better and better, finding that ideal audience will start happening. But it's going to be a journey, right? You can't assume that today we are there, but at some point we'll be there. And it does make sense for everyone to find those ideal 100 users. It's like if you have a brand and you are a seller, you want to find the first 100, the best 100 buyers of your brand, so that they go gaga about it, talk about it, they give you the best score. But as a seller, how do you find the first best 100 users of your brand? It's going to be by trial and error, right? I mean, you will give it to certain people, they will like it, and you will, once you learn that, oh, this kind of people like it, you'll find more of those people and go after them. The same happens online as well. I think everyone's trying to get there, but it's a journey. I don't think we are there yet.
But despite the maturity in, let's say, how we are able to deal with big data or machine learning, do you think, or what do you think is still stopping us from not getting there? What is the functional challenge that we are facing?
It's about profiling people at scale, right? I mean, we don't have good enough profile of every user in this world, and we don't have a good enough profile on all the available attributes for each content creator and each piece of creation. Because see, to do the perfect matching, you need to have the profile of every consumer in the world. You need to have the profile of every creator. You need to have the profile of every piece of content. And you need to find the attribute which will be the most engaging attribute. And then you have to then find where the engagement is the highest and then match them, right? So we don't have 100% understanding of every user and every creator and every content or every creation. And that's why we are not at 100%. So that is, once we are able to do that, and I think we'll be there. Because all platforms do not have 100% of all users either, right? Each one of them has a fraction of the user. And they also don't know everything about their user. They know some things based on their past performance and based on past profile. But everything about me is not known to every platform. So they can make intelligent guess about what music I will like or what movie I will want to watch. But it's not going to be 100% correct. Like even Netflix makes a mistake, right? I mean, I watch Netflix a lot, but sometimes it gives me recommendations that I don't want to watch. So somewhere they don't know some things about me and my working. Or maybe I'm fickle-minded. Maybe I change my mind like every other week, right? That's also possible, right? Because what you think about how I will behave in the situation, we are not always logical, right? So even if you know everything about me, even my wife makes a mistake in terms of what I would like, right? So what is Netflix gonna do there, right? I mean, so even someone who's lived me for decades doesn't know me fully, because we also keep evolving. It's not like we are constant. What we like today, our taste and preferences also change. So there are quite a few variables here, right? One is you don't know everything about me. Even if you know everything about me, you don't know when I would change and why would I change. And third is, you don't know the attribute on which a certain piece of content will hit me, right? And which attribute is really important to me on that day, right? For example, if I'm going for a walk, I want to listen to something which is say wellness oriented or healthy. But if I'm going for a business meeting or I'm on my commute to work, maybe I want to get business brief. So also time of the day also matters, right? So there are so many attributes. So, I mean, it's a multiple variable optimization problem. So,
Got it.
yeah.
But since you mentioned Netflix, very interesting to ask that, at some point they sort of hit a plateau, hit an upper cap on the number of subscribers that they were able to get in India. And eventually they sort of claimed to resort to an ad-based model, and that's not supposedly picking up well as well. So what do you think should really be the way for monetization from platforms or businesses perspective when it comes to future of content? Or like, is there a way beyond advertisements? And
yeah, so typically what has worked is that freemium model is the way to go, because you are slicing your user, and those who are willing to pay money and avoid ads, you are selling subscription to them. And those who are not willing to pay you money, then you're showing them ad, because people have different time and money trade-off, right? For example, people who have a lot of money and limited time, they prefer to use their time more efficiently. People who have less money but a lot of time, they don't mind watching ads, because for them, so it's about like for people at different stage in their life, the trade-off between time and money is very different, right? So if you are only ad-based model, you are doing a disservice to people who are willing to pay you money for no ads. And you're only a subscription business, then you are doing disservice to people who are willing to consume your content with ads but can't pay you money. So therefore, to make the best of the both world, I think freemium model works. 90% people may not pay, 10% people who pay you will give you subscription revenues, and 90% people will see ads, and that's where you get brand revenues.
But that's the model pretty much followed by YouTube's and Spotify's of the world today.
Yeah.
And you don't think there's another way, which is sort of the future of how you can make money as a platform beyond ads?
No, there are quite a few other models, right? I mean, one is all your merchandising, right? So the third model is that
you take a cut on those.
Yeah, I mean, lead generation, merchandising, affiliate marketing, like there are, like, in fact, I have a list of 22 business models, but roughly it's about whether user pays or the brand, someone else pays, right? I mean, I think if you simplify it at the highest level, there are only one choice to make, right? Do you charge the user, or do you make money from someone else who's not a user? When you charge the user, it's a subscription model. When you make money from someone else, it can be either a brand which is paying you for attention, which is advertisement, or a brand paying you for sale, which is merchandising or e-commerce, or the brand paying you for doing something else, right? Which can be some other model, right? Or someone else paying you. For example, you have people's data and someone paying you for data about the user. That is data selling the data of the user, right? Which is what sometimes you anonymize data and you sell data for research companies and all these Bloombergs of the world. So you are either the user is the product, or the product is paid by the user. So I think there's only two models, right? So and when the user doesn't pay, then you monetize the user by selling their time, their data, their knowledge, their whatever, right? Whatever you can sell, you sell that and make money.
Got it. And any piece of advice for creators specifically before we go into other segments? Creators.
No, I think my advice to creator is that you know your craft very well. So the question then becomes, based on the craft, like what are you good at? You have to think like an entrepreneur to figure out who is the best audience for my craft. Don't go blindly after like, oh, I have these many followers, because that is just a number. It's a vanity metric, right? What is important is that for your craft, who is the right audience, and how are you delivering value to your audience, for which you can make money that can sustain you and also sort of give you a good return on sort of whatever you want to, whatever you produce, right? So you have to think like an entrepreneur, and as an entrepreneur, you have to understand your audience, you have to price it well, and you have to choose the right channels to monetize. So that's my advice. And I think this is still in infancy in India. I think it's getting more developed in the US, but in India, it's still this whole trade of creatorship is in its infancy. But my view is that it will become more mature in the next few years as everyone understands this game much better. I think this whole game is only about 3 to 4 years old in India.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
it was not there like 3 years ago. There was this whole creator economy or creatorship was not there.
I think it really began just after the ban of TikTok.
Yes, I mean, but you are talking only about visual creators, right? You're not talking about creators which are in, say, personal finance space, creators in sort of the health and nutrition space, creator in the parenting space. See, all this thing came because of COVID also, right? I mean, everything turned online because all these things were happening in the offline world, right? So TikTok ban created visual creators, and the COVID created every other creator. Everyone else became a creator, right? Whatever you could sell,
right?
Whatever was your craft, you took it online and you started making money, right?
Right.
Like I see, like sort of this recipe moms, right? I mean, moms who had some amazing recipes, they're coming online and selling it, right?
Yeah.
And they're taking orders. So the online merchandising is happening. They're taking orders online. They are selling their recipes. They are doing their craft. Mompreneurs have become big, right? So everything is moving online. And the question is, either you are selling goods or you are selling experience, right? You're not selling anything else, right? So either if you're selling good, then you're e-commerce, right? You're pure e-commerce. But if you're selling experiences, and part of that can also be merchandising, but it's also a package service and many other things, then it becomes a creator. You're a creator, right? Not only you are selling goods, but you're selling experiences and services, then you're a creator of content and craft, right?
Got it. And in one line, this may be a very personal question, but after Invact, after spending some time as a startup, what again sort of gave you the grit and the confidence to plunge again into starting up?
No, I think once you try entrepreneurship, it's very difficult to get into a job. I'll be very blunt there.
Yeah.
I think, and because you have seen so much, ideas keep running in your mind, right? So you're always thinking about, hey, why is something happening this way? And why can't it be done the other way? And who is benefiting here? Who is the customer here? Who's the user here? Who will pay for it? How much can you make from it? And since you know the basics of entrepreneurship, you know exactly that when something hits you, you know how to execute. You know exactly what to do as step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. So that's why serial entrepreneurs are pretty common phenomena, both in the Bay Area and also in Bangalore. I would say that a lot of people are serial, like they do one startup, either it goes well, doesn't go well, they get acquired, then move on to the next one. Very few of them actually land into a full-time traditional career after that. Right? It's not to say that anything wrong in the corporate job. It has its own challenge and other things, but each one to their own, right? I mean, everyone finds their own living and they find their own happiness. So my happiness is probably doing this. So at this point in time, I'm happy doing it. At some point, I might do something else, but I mean, who knows?
Nice. Wonderful. Yeah, I think I relate to that. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have the biggest FOMO because we have just so many ideas, and the biggest risk that we can have is not acting on those ideas.
Yeah, I think my learning there is that, if you feel strongly about something, you should start executing, and I think things will become clear. It's not like waiting for the perfect love to arrive, right? I mean, if you find that you are in love with someone, it's good enough. Like, take the plunge and try it out. It can grow on you and blossom. If it doesn't work out, then it's fine. I mean, you move on to the next one.
Yeah, Tinder's always there.
Yeah, I mean, my view would be that, don't wait for too long. Some waiting is fine. You want to recharge, recuperate. You want to sort of also relax a bit and think deeply. But if you wait for too long, I mean, then I think you may lose that momentum as well. That's what I feel, right? Sure. I think some waiting is fine, but not too long of waiting.
Got it. Very insightful and a lot of depths when it comes to creator economy and content.
Yeah, happy to share more and happy to educate people on this, because I have been in the thick of this as the head of India earlier, and I think also seeing things from the US, because I was in the US as well. I think technology is really, really enabling everyone, right? So everyone is trying to do what they love doing. And that is what the genesis of creator economy is. Because in the past, people used to get a job and they used to do the job, right? Yeah. It was just a job, right? I mean, I'm getting a pay and I'm doing a job. But now it's more like passion.
Yeah.
Like from job economy, we have gone to passion economy, and we all become passion entrepreneurs. And that's the creatorship or creator economy now.
Got it. Thanks a lot for doing this, Manish.